Salah.
Hello, good morning. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Glad to hear it. So, how's work?
It's going wonderful.
Oh, isn't that nice? I'm
Yes.
so happy for you. You like the people you're working with? They treat you nicely?
Yes. You know, the firm is Israeli firm, 100%.
Ah,
And this week, they sent an annual report to the investors to Israel.
ah.
And guess what? My bio was included, like in the portion that says, meet the team. And my picture and my small bio went there. So I feel like I'm in the top of the world.
Good for you. Well, you deserve it. You work hard, you're smart. Good.
Yeah, it feels, you know, that no offense, but I'm working with the best people in the world, and they recognize my talent, you know.
Good.
And that feels, you know, it's like a
yeah, that's a good feeling. That's a great feeling.
yes.
Yeah. So in the Niños?
Yeah, I took a back seat on their education. I let them deal with the mother and the father. They are on their own. Basically, I kicked them out of the house.
Hey, Marlene.
Morning.
Good morning, Marlene.
Hi, Ursula. How you doing?
So are the grandchildren in school or are they at home doing, you know?
Homeschool.
They're doing the home thing on Zoom. Okay. Good Shabbos, Betty. How you doing?
Good morning.
Shabbat Shalom, Betty.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Hi.
Oh, boy.
How's your house, Rabbi?
It's coming along. See, on Thursday, we had 3 mirrors taken down from the walls. They 90 by 80 inch mirrors, 3 of them. It was huge, but we had these experts come in. These guys were just great. I thought that this is something Maryland really wanted these mirrored walls to be taken down. And so I said, I don't know. And I think the place is going to be a little darker. And but I think she's right. We had them patched and painted yesterday, and tomorrow they're going to come back. We don't like people to be in the house on Shabbos to do work like that, so they're coming back tomorrow. It looks, I think it's going to be really good.
Good.
And so one thing I want to do, and it may cost me a little bit of money to do, in the master bath, in the shower stall, where you can sit down, there was a schwitzbad, a steam bath. Now it doesn't work anymore, and we've looked into it, and the model that we have has been discontinued. Now I think the plumbing is all there, so I think if it's not too expensive, I think it'll be lovely to come home once in a while and have a schwitz, have a steam. Isn't that cool? In your home? So I'm going to look into.
I can think of cooler things than that, but
cooler, yes, cooler, literally cooler. But you know, steam feels so good once in a while. It cleans out your lungs and your pores, and you know, it sort of relaxes you, and you come home from a hard day, and
Especially you have asthma.
Yeah, I do have asthma, so
that's good.
It'll probably be good for my asthma. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I didn't even. Oh, yeah, that's why I'm doing it. I think what I'm going to do is get a, hey, Randy, good Shabbos. I think I'm going to get a prescription from my doctor, and then I'm going to ask Medicare to pay for it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
A rabbi needs a
Very good
schwitz.
idea.
He needs a schwitz. So
But it's a smart thing to do. You can, I believe, use it to, for a tax deduction.
maybe, yeah, I'll say it's for health.
You've got a better chance with them than
Yeah,
Medicare.
yeah, maybe, yeah. So everybody, it's good to see you all.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. I think Perry's going to join us, and I don't know who's going to be joining us on.
I think Barb and Stan are hooking up their equipment. They moved and they're hooking up.
Sometimes you don't know how many people are watching. I don't know if you watched last night, but there were so many people on our Facebook page. We had somebody in Costa Rica watching. I knew about this anyway, in Pennsylvania, California, South Carolina, New York.
Oh,
And hey,
Barb is here. I thought you weren't.
Barbara.
hey, are you in your new house? Where to go?
Wow.
Are you I don't see any unpacked boxes. You've hidden them all from sight.
Yes, they are very well hidden.
Oh, we're
I
down to about 2 unpacked boxes after a month, but and we've painted the place, we've taken down mirrors, we've done some power washing and put in some lighting
Yes.
fixtures. You want to get it just so anyway.
We just moved in Thursday afternoon, so we still have at least 30 boxes, but they're small and they're all in one room and we're fishing around for everything, but it's good. It's
But
good. I'm going to be visiting Ursula real soon. I could walk to Ursula's house.
Wow.
2 minutes.
Yes.
It's really nice when you can do that. There's a congregant who's actually we've known for many years before she became a congregant, Fran Savlov, and she lives in the same development. She made an apple pie for us. She said, come over. I walked over, and it felt like a kibbutz, when you live, it felt, when you can walk around your development and you got people that you like. So anyway, our Torah portion is Bishalach. I have a bunch of stuff I want to point out to you. Bishalach begins, it begins on chapter 13 of the book of Exodus. Bishalach, how would you translate it? Bishalach, sent. Vayhi bishalach paro et ha'am v'lo nacham elukim derech eretz plishtim. Now, when Pharaoh let the people go, the word shalach, though, I don't know, allow, actually it means he sent them. Actually, I would have translated it as something a little more intensive. He said, get out of here. After all of the plagues, we were a bit of a thorn in Pharaoh's side. But of course, he relents and he decides that it was a mistake to let our people go. And of course, he comes after us. If you turn to chapter 15 in Bishalach, we come to what is called, good Shabbos, Stanley. We come to something that's called Shirat Yam. This Shabbat is called Shabbat Shirah, the parsha of the song. Moses sings 2 songs in the Torah. This is one. After our people had made it across the Reed Sea safely, and we were now out of Egypt, out of harm's way, Moses bursts into song. At the end of his life, he sings again and he sings about the history of the Jewish people up to that time and what might befall them in the future. So here we are it says, "Az yashir Moshe v'nei Yisrael et hashira azot l'Adonai v'yomru lemor." And then Moses and Israel sang this song to the Eternal. Now, it says, "Az yashir Moshe uvnei Yisrael." And now Moses sang, and all of Israel sang too. Now, there's something grammatically going on here that I find interesting. Yashir, Az Yashir, is in the singular. It's in the singular. In Hebrew, if I was going to say Marlene and Ursula are singing, and I sang, or we're singing, it would have to be in the plural, right? In Hebrew, it would have to be in the plural. In English, it's not so important, but in Hebrew, as well as other languages, I think in Spanish, it may be that way. You have to pluralize it, right? It's the verb has to, but here it says, "Az yashir Moshe uvnei Yisrael." And to me, this points out that Moses was singing. Because it's in the singular, it points out that Moses sang. So what's the big deal? Why, everybody can sing. Some people can sing well. Some people sing so well, but everybody pretty well can sing. So what's the big deal? What flows from Moses' mouth flows, and it's beautiful, and it's poetic, and it's smooth, and each word is connected to each other word. And as you may recall, Moses stuttered. Moses was a man of kaved peh, meaning he had a speech impediment of some sort. And here, this person with a speech impediment who doesn't even want to go and speak to Pharaoh because, he just cannot speak. He sings. These words just pour out of him. And now I know that there is a phenomenon among people who stutter, that sometimes they can sing. Who's that country and Western singer? Mel
Tillis.
Yes,
Mel
Mel
Tillis.
Tillis. He's a person who's, but when I said that Moses stuttered, it doesn't really say he stuttered. It just says he was a person of heavy speech. It's not clear what his speech impediment was. Kaved peh means heaviness of the mouth. Literally, that's how it's described. Now, I've looked at the Torah for hints of what's going on here. Moses' speech impediment was not mentioned until God speaks to him and tells him to go to Pharaoh. Moses then mentions, I'm a person who has trouble speaking. And so you remember Aaron, his brother, is appointed as his spokesman. After this incident in the Torah, when the Israelites are safe and sound on the other side of the Red Sea, it's never mentioned again. It's never mentioned. And I find that peculiar. Years ago, 45 years ago, I was interested in the work of Rollo May. Maybe you heard of Rollo May. Rollo May was a well-known psychoanalyst. I believe he was a psychiatrist. I'm not sure if he was a psychologist. I think he was a psychiatrist. And he spoke about a psychosomatic kinds of ailments. And he wrote a book called, I can't remember, something, the word power was in in the title. He said, I can't remember what was Will and Power, I think it was called. I still have it somewhere. I haven't read it for a long time, but this stuck with me. He said, everyone has a certain amount of power, meaning you have talents. Every person has something of a destiny. Every person has some kind of thing that they're supposed to do. It's different from everyone else. And in his experience as a therapist, he found when people denied their own power, when people put aside their own destiny, when people downplayed their own talent, whatever their talent may have been, that they would have some sort of physiological manifestation of this because there wasn't a flow of what they should be doing. So I read this and I said, no, that's interesting. I wonder if stuttering or a speech impediment might be some kind of manifestation of someone denying themselves what they should be doing. Somebody who downplays their own power, who plays weak when they're actually stronger than they are. And so I looked at Rollo May's work and I said, what may have happened with, does this paradigm work for Moses? And so my take on it was Moses was raised, of course, you remember, in the palace of Pharaoh. He was a person of education, of culture. He was a man who was raised to have a certain self-image of someone who could get things done. You remember what happened. He goes out to help his people, right? You remember he sees the taskmaster beating the Hebrew slave, and he intervenes. He actually kills the taskmaster. And the next day, the Hebrews turn on him. His own brothers and sisters turn on him. They go, he sees two Hebrew slaves arguing and he tries to intermediate. He tries to settle the dispute and they turn on him and they say, who do you think you are to interfere with us? Are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian taskmaster? He realizes that his life is endangered. He had tried to do what he was supposed to do, and that was to intervene on behalf of his people. He finds out that it's harder than he thought. Leading people, not easy. Sometimes they turn on you. And what does he do? You remember what he does?
He runs away.
He runs away, exactly. He runs away. He takes off his fancy aristocratic garments, puts on the clothes of a shepherd, goes out to the country of Midian, becomes a shepherd. He reminds me of what a lot of people in my generation did. You remember we used to talk about power trips. Somebody who was being a little too pushy or a little too assertive, they go, she's on a power trip. Remember that? Remember that expression? Yeah. And it was kind of like if somebody was, it was all about love and peace. And don't get me wrong, I'm for love and peace. I have a little bit of the hippie in me, but there's nothing wrong with power. What did a lot of people in my generation do? They ran off to communes.
Yes.
In California, in Oregon, in Vermont, right? And here they were, often sophisticated young people who were rather intellectual, but they decided that they didn't want to hassle. That was another word. I don't want the hassle, right? Well, life is a hassle. Guess what? Life is a hassle. This is what I see Moses, in a sense, being an ancient version of this. It is only then, when he's in Midian, where he, after having run away from, hey, Perry, good Shabbos, only after having run away from his destiny of being the leader of the Jewish people, that all of a sudden we have mention of his speech impediment, right? If you are intended to do something great, if you have talents that you haven't really used, if you are denying your own power over your own life and the power to shape your environment, then you are going to have some maladies of some sort. It can manifest physically in illness, in depression, in stomach ailments, or whatever. So Moses at the burning bush tells God, I can't go and help. I can't go and rescue the Jewish people. I'm a man of kaved peh. I'm a man of heavy speech. And God gets mad at him. God says, who gives a human being the ability to speak? It's me, not you. I have given you words to, and the compromise in the end, of course, is Aaron is going to speak. Moses goes back to Egypt. He'd been very discouraged by his intervention, by his disastrous interventions on behalf of the Jewish people at the beginning of his life. And he's scared. He was scared for his life. But he goes back, confronts his fear. It must have been absolutely terrifying for him to stand before Pharaoh. You remember, Pharaoh could have gone like this. Pharaoh could have said at any time, take him out and execute him. But there Moses faces up to his fear. Moses without a weapon, without a sword, without a dagger, without a detail of Secret Service agents, he confronts Pharaoh. And he does what he is supposed to do. He understands that he has power. Everybody has power. And so in this week's Torah portion, at the point where his first very important task is done, that is getting the people out of Egypt, it says, Az yashir Moshe v'nei Yisrael et hashira hazeh. It says, and now Moses sings. These words pour out of him in song. And I believe, this is my theory, and I base this on kind of an analysis that grows out of my reading of Rollo May from the 1960s and 70s, that he didn't stutter anymore, or whatever his speech impediment was, it was gone. And I flipped through the Torah. I don't see any mention of this problem again. It's done. And it just, and so on a deeper level, on a spiritual level, on the level of what does this teach us as individuals, I think it teaches us to face our fears, whatever they are, to turn around and not run away from our fears, to face them down. It doesn't always work out well, but you're not, it's whatever scares you. Sometime in your life, it might be late in your life, and you turn and you face them and you say, in Yiddish, you say, genug, enough. Bastante, must speak. This is it, no more. I'm facing it. You know, whatever it is. And so this is my own personal take on those opening words of chapter 15. Any comments on this?
Well, I was thinking about Moses's life in the palace. You know, as you said, a culturalized, educational life, most likely. But yet he knew his roots. He knew his roots, I guess, from his sister, you know, previously bringing around the mother and all, but that was so many years ago. But it seemed like he still deep down in his conscience, you know, remembered all that. And it must have been very hard for him to make that first action to go out there and observe that taskmaster who he ultimately killed. And it must have been, I guess, shocking for him, you know, that the Jews noticed and like he had to retreat.
Yes.
And I think that there's so many parallels in life. I'm sure you were saying this for us, that something for most people, there's like one or two things in your life that kind of like jet propel you forward, you know, even though it's so hard to make that little effort. Once you do, you know, something else unfolds for you, you discover yourself, and you know, you're able to do something. So I think when we read it, it kind of gives us confidence, you know, that we're never too old to, you know, make some change or improvement or try something.
Yeah, it's never too late. Sometimes, you know, there are, you know, there's something has held you back. And I mean, I say you, I mean, me too, all of us. There's something, some kind of self-doubt, some sort of voice inside that says, you can't do that, or you're not able to do that, or you're not up to the job, or whatever it is. You're not whole because you've been listening to that advice. I took a course once in counseling, taken many courses. I mean, I got a doctorate in counseling. And I took a course once, just counseling techniques. And the teacher said that he had a client, a woman, who came to him who was complaining about her husband. She says, you know, all my life I've wanted to dance. I love dancing. I want to dance. He won't take me dancing, the schnook. And I sit at home and I just want to go dance. My friends go dancing with their husbands. So the teacher said, the therapist said, you know, I challenged her. I said, you know, you can go dancing. You know, maybe there are dance clubs where they'll give you a partner and there's nothing, no hanky panky going around. It's, you know, going on. They will just match you up with somebody and you can dance. It doesn't have to be your husband. You know, there are lots of places like this. And he arranged it. He helped her arrange it to go dancing. And it turned out she had a phobia about dance floors. It wasn't her husband all these years. She had, you know, and then he worked with her fear of, you know, a big open dance floor. But we make all sorts of excuses for not doing, you know, what our heart really wants. Here's the thing that I've noticed. The thing that attracts you often you're afraid of. And the thing that you're afraid of often is the thing that attracts you spiritually. Think about it. The thing that pulls you, you're afraid of. The thing that you're afraid of is pulling you toward it. It's just something to think about. Now, here's another take. I have 3 takes on this week's Star portion. In Shiratayam, in the Song of the Sea, we see that the sea Yam Suf, the Reed Sea, opens up. And you know the story. We all do Passover, right? And the Israelites go through, and those 600 of Pharaoh's chariots follow them into the water. Their wheels get stuck in the sand. The Israelites, our ancestors, get to the other side, and the sea collapses on Pharaoh's army, and they're drowned. And we're just out of breath on the east bank of the Sea of Reeds, or also known as the Red Sea, and we see the bodies of the Egyptian soldiers floating on the surface of the water, and it's a pretty harsh scene. But it's also joyous. Our enemy has been defeated. But you remember, when we talk about the 10 plagues, what do we do with the wine? You remember?
Flick it off.
For each of the 10 plagues. Why? Because, and what's the reason for that? Do you remember the Midrash? Why we take 1 drop of water from our cup, wine from our cups for each of the 10 plagues. Do anybody remember?
Oh, well, our joy is diminished because someone had to suffer. And
that's right. The angels in heaven were rejoicing, and God said, "How can you rejoice when my creatures have died?" And he's talking about the Egyptians. He's saying, I love the Egyptians too. Yes, they were the enemy. They were the enemy of the Jewish people at that time. But nonetheless, they're human beings. And anytime a human being dies, God weeps. And, you know, we shouldn't take joy at the death of our enemies. Now, something interesting happens at the end of this Torah portion. We come across another enemy right at the end of this week's Torah portion. Amalek, the Amalekites. Okay, Amalek, who attacked us at the end of this Torah portion. It's just this little insertion at the end of Beshalach, and they are an especially nasty group of people, marauders, who attack us from behind. They attack the people who are disabled. They attack the old people. They attack children. They're kind of terrorists when you really get down to it. They're like ancient terrorists. And what does it say? It says, blot out the memory of Amalek. Wipe out Amalek wherever you are. Never forget what Amalek has done to you. And it's a big deal about never forgetting who Amalek was and the Amalekites. Question arises. The Amalekites seem to have attacked us just that once. No, they were pretty bad. The Egyptians oppressed us for 400 years. 400 years. So who becomes, between the Amalekites and the Egyptians, who becomes the stereotypic, archetypical enemy of the Jewish people? The Egyptians or the Amalekites? Who becomes the archetypical enemy of the Jewish people? Which one?
Well,
The Amalekites.
you want to
Later-
attack for
The Amalekites, not the Egyptians. And you go, well, wait a minute. They attack us once. I mean, understandably, they're a nasty bunch. But the Egyptians oppress us 400 years. Later on in the book of Deuteronomy, it says, do not abhor the Egyptian in your hearts, because you dwelled in his land for 400 years. We're even commanded not to hate the Egyptians. But we're commanded to hate, never to forget, to blot out the memory of the Amalekites, of Amalek. What's going on here? I mean, if you're going, well, who should be our, historical, the archetypical enemy of the Jewish? We should be the Egyptians, shouldn't it? I mean, logically. What do you think, Stanley?
The Egyptians took us in when we're starving to death.
Interesting.
The
Interesting.
Egyptians gave us land that was very fertile towards
Uh-huh.
the delta
Yes.
in that area.
Yes.
The Egyptians let us stay there for 400 years.
Let us stay there.
Well, they let us stay there. They could have kicked us out. And I think it was the slavery. I don't think it was like a building buildings, but in sharecropping. The Pharaoh probably owned all the land. And it was similar to sharecropping that kept us in slavery. Slavery to Pharaoh and the land. This is just my opinion on it.
Interesting.
They never really attacked us.
Stanley, do
The
you
only way
remember?
they attacked us was when they tried to kill the firstborn.
Oh, okay.
And
Stanley,
didn't work. That didn't work.
Stanley, do you remember the rationale that the Pharaoh gives for enslaving the Jewish people at the beginning of the book of Exodus? Is there a rationale given?
I don't remember.
They multiplied, they became.
Yes.
Yeah. In
Yes.
other words, they
There
would
was-
multiply and take over.
Well, yes. They were worried. I don't know if they were worried that the Jewish people was going to take over Egypt, but they were worried that they might side with an external enemy if, that we were a
And take
foreign
over.
element, and maybe, and there may have been some historical reason for that. When we came into Egypt, a Semitic people called the Hyksos had recently conquered Egypt, and they were in charge for 100 or 150 years. They were linguistic cousins of ours. We may have come in during their time when the nativist population, when the native Egyptians who weren't Semites like us came into power, threw out the Hyksos. They were stuck with all of these people who had been aligned with this external enemy. Okay? So Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who recently passed away, a great loss, he was the chief rabbi of the British Commonwealth. He makes an interesting distinction between the Egyptians and the Amalekites. He said, the Egyptians were definitely nasty to us, but the Egyptians had some kind of at least rationale in their mind. There may have even been, in terms of real politics, in terms of they had they in their minds had a reason. They saw us as a threat to them, and he said, anytime you have an enemy with whom that feels threatened, or with whom you have a genuine conflict of interest, there's always the possibility that you can turn that enemy into an ally, or at least neutralize the hatred and the animosity between you. And, you know, as history went on, there were times when independent Israel actually did have alliances with Egypt later on, hundreds of years later, against the Babylonians, right? And so now the Amalekites, on the other hand, had no beef against us. There was no conflict of interest. There was no reconciling with them. They hated us for no other reason than they hated us. They hated us because we were kind of the other. We were there. And so what Rabbi Sachs says, that differentiate between two enemies. There is an enemy, and hey, listen, both can kill you. But there is an enemy that you're arguing with. If it's countries, you know, it's water rights, it's mineral rights, it's farmland. It's, you know, maybe you can come to some kind of negotiated settlement with that kind of adversary because it's based on something. We had enemies in the ancient world who didn't hate us because we were Jews. They hated us, or they were, you know, they went to war with us because, you know, they wanted the same piece of land that we,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But there is a certain kind of enemy that just hates for the sake of hating. There is no negotiating with them. A modern manifestation of this is ISIS, Hamas, some of these Muslim terrorist groups. There's no coming to any sort of understanding. There's no meeting of the minds with them. There's no neutralizing their you can't appeal to their self-interest. Listen, you got somebody that, and it's really hot, you know, you got a real bad relationship with them. And eventually you come to them and you go, listen, it's not in your self-interest. It's not in my self-interest for us to keep fighting. How about we cut the loaf in half? Okay, I'm not totally happy with this. You're not totally happy with this. But look at this going on. It's only going to hurt you and me. So you may not end up loving each other, but based on self-interest, you can appeal to them. The Nazis. This was pointed out by Emil Fackenheim, who is a Reform rabbi who had survived Auschwitz. He became a philosopher and he lived up in Toronto. Emil Fackenheim, he speaks of this kind of enemy. And he said the Nazis were this kind of enemy. There was, if you, you know, it would have been a scary thing had the Nazis not been anti-Semitic, wouldn't it? They had an incredible army, but they had this crazy hatred for the Jews. And the Jews had been very loyal Germans during the First World War. German Jews loved Germany. They did. Had, you know, you think that if he would have been nice to the Jews, God, he might have been able to take over the world. But that would have been sensible. But he was the Amalekite kind of enemy, hating us for no other reason than we were there. No other reason than we were Jews. Emil Fackenheim points out that at the end of the war, as the Eastern Front was collapsing, when the Russians were advancing on the Eastern Front, and they needed materiel, they needed reinforcements of personnel, they needed munitions to hold off the Russians. What were they using the cattle cars for? What were they using the railroad cars for? They were diverting railroad stock that should have been taking soldiers to the Eastern Front and tanks and guns and whatever. They were using that railroad stock to take Jews to the extermination camp. It was crazy. It was, you know, it wasn't in there, you know, I'm sure that there were, and I know there were some German generals who, some of them weren't anti-Semitic. They didn't love the Jews. They didn't care one way or the other. Some complained. They said, why are you doing this? Well, the Nazis were like the Amalekites. There was no appealing to self-interest. There was no appealing to reason. And so, you know, there can be a naivete among people. You know, in the West, in Western culture, we think everybody acts in their own self-interest, right? It's economics. That's the way we think. Americans think this way. Europeans think this way. Everybody's going to do what's in their self-interest. So you don't happen to like me. But if I can appeal to your self-interest, you're going to put that aside, right? Work with me. We'll both get rich. There are some kinds of enemies in this world that you cannot negotiate with. You cannot come to any sort of reason with. They are the Amalekites. They're not that many, but they're there. On a national level, when in world affairs, leaders have to understand that. I suppose even, you know, how I always like to personalize things and bring it down to a lesson that we can use in our personal life, not just the big picture, but there's the macro vision, but what's the micro vision? You and I live on the micro vision. We're not big world leaders. But, you know, there may be some people who in your life, I mean, most people you can make an arrangement with, right? Not everybody loves you, but you can figure out a way of living with them. It's in their interest. It's in your interest. But there are some people, and we call them toxic, right? Maybe you got some in your family. Or some people that they've taken a dislike to you, or might not just be you, it's just the way they are. And there's no reasoning with them, right? And you have to protect yourself from them. So I see another kind of message in this week's Torah portion. Any comment on this? Stanley.
I don't think we should have a group of people say they're all bad, like the Amalekites. In the story of Esther, we had one person, yes, Haman. We could say Haman was a bad person, but all the Persians weren't bad people.
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
And I'll give you an example of the Second World War. Rommel was called back to Berlin for conference. Now, Rommel does not live in Berlin, he lives in Stuttgart. And he went to this office to get accommodations. And they sent him out to this address. And he walked and he knocked on the door, and people living there. So he says, I'm sorry, but they told me to come here, but since there's people here, I'll go back. So he went back to the accommodation center and they said, oh, we'll get those Jews out of there.
Yes.
And Rommel says, no, I'm not going to dispossess anybody else.
I know that story about
Yes. So there was Germans even in high places.
Yes.
They couldn't go any higher than Rommel.
Yes.
Where he also went against Hitler when he attacked a French Foreign Legion that was with de Gaulle, and he got prisoners, and he got orders since France was supposed to be an ally because they conquered France. Hitler says, kill them all. And he said, no, he defied Hitler. He says, they're prisoners of war. And when our boys become prisoners, I want them to be treated the same way. So I don't like to say the Amalekites are all bad.
Yeah. You know, you bring up,
You have to go by the individuals.
you bring up a very important point. Stanley, you bring up a very important point. You have to be careful who you call an Amalekite. You have to be very careful.
Okay.
And it's kind of rare. Most adversaries, eventually you can either turn them into an ally, sometimes even a friend, or you make an arrangement with. But there are elements in this world, and you're never going to win them over. The Nazis, and we can argue whether Rommel was a true blue Nazi, and von Stauffenberg, and other noble Germans, but the Nazis, as a group, they were like the Amalekites. There was no reasoning with them. Oh, they might lie to you to gain an advantage. ISIS, right now, are you going to really sit down with ISIS? Are you really going to sit down with the white supremacists?
No.
Are you going to say, well, they're good on? I don't want to get political here. There are good people on both sides. No, sorry, no. There are no good. Now, we do know some white supremacists have been deprogrammed or yes, okay, fine. But as a group, to sit down with white supremacists, there's no middle ground. Now that's very rare. They are a very small but dangerous group in America. There's not too many of them, given. I mean, they look like on January 6th. They looked like they were taking over the country. But in fact, if you look at the percentage that they are of the general population, there's not that many. They're very dangerous. Do you go, okay, let's just, you have your opinion, we have our opinion, or do you just fight them? Are there some groups, some ideologies you say there's no room for? Sorry. And again, Now, I've heard people, and I agree with, Stanley's caveat there. I've heard of people say, "Oh, the Palestinians are the new Amalekites," and I object to that, because I think that there are elements within the Palestinian people that do want to make peace with us. But if you're talking Hamas, if you're talking Hezbollah, I go, there's no talking. There's no coming to an arrangement. You can't appeal to their, I look at such groups and I go, it's not in your self-interest. This is a death cult. And that doesn't matter. They want to die. As long as they can kill one of us, So I see this Torah portion also just saying it's a little harsher than most of us, than the way that most of us approach life. But, it's kind of growing up and saying, don't be naive. Ursula, I want to hear your point of view.
Thank you. Well, two things that I'm taking from this Torah portion, and the awareness. I have to be aware,
Mm-hmm.
and not everybody is gonna be good to me.
That's right.
Good
And
point.
the second one is the Egyptians give us hospitality. It was a self-interest. They were a culture, and they had education.
Yes.
Even though they used us as slaves, but they didn't kill us.
Ah,
And the other-
interesting. Difference between the Amalekite and the Egyptians. The Egyptians wanted to enslave us. The Amalekites wanted to kill us. Okay, good point.
And the Amaleks.
Amalekites are Amalek.
Yeah.
Amalek. They came from behind.
Yes.
So the Egyptians went front and they came from behind.
Yes.
So be aware,
Yes. Yes.
I like that.
Good point. You bring up some good points there. Okay, one last thing. I said I'd do 3 takes on this week's Torah portion. The last take. I'm going to read this. This is from Levi Yitzchak of Bedurchev, one of the kind of the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. And what I love about the early Hasidic commentators on the Torah is they spiritualize everything. They say, don't take it literally. They spiritualize it. We've been discussing kind of history here. So there is, in this week's Torah portion, we see the sea falling in on the Egyptian army. We know what happened. And then it says that something that seems a bit extraneous, that the sea returned to its course, to its normal position. And so Levi Yitzchak is looking at this, and he finds a midrash, an ancient midrash, to illuminate this. He says, so why did it have to tell us that? Of course, it falls on the Egyptian. It opens up to let the Israelites out, and then it goes back to its normal place, its normal course. So he personifies the Yam HaSuf, that is the Reed Sea, calling it the Reed Sea, not the Red Sea. Yam HaSuf. The sea beheld the great pleasure in splitting had brought to God, since it caused Israel to sing. It did not want to return to its normal course. Let me remain dry land and let Israel go on singing forever. This is with the sea The sea is talking to God. That is why scripture had to tell us that it returned to its course, ekano. It followed the conditions set for it, that it split only for Moses, but afterwards returned to being an ordinary sea. The sea rejoiced, not just Moses, not just the Israelites, but the whole sea rejoiced. Why? Because God rejoiced, seeing that the Israelites were allowed to go through on dry land. This also settles the question, and he talks about a colleague of his, Or HaChaim. He says, another Hasidic rabbi, this also settles a question raised by my friend who asked what was so extraordinary about the sea splitting. Didn't the Jordan split for Joshua? There was the story of the rivers splitting for Joshua, and the river Ganai for Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. That was in the Talmud. But now we understand the difference. Those rivers had already seen the great pleasure God derived from the splitting of the Reed Sea. They therefore lovingly desired to split. But the sea hadn't yet seen the joy that was to come to its creator. That was the difference. The joy that the sea derived from doing God's will. When I was reading this, I thought of that song that we say, we'll sing it in a few minutes, that song from the Psalms, Kol Hanishama Tahaleliyah. Let every living thing bless God's name. And so the sea was blessing God, The sea was joyous that it had pleased God. That is the Hasidic idea of seeing, animating everything with spirit, animating everything and saying that every living thing, and even the sea, which is it living? The rocks, the mountains, everything that exists to bless God. I think it's just a lovely notion. So, and it had to be told, okay, enough already, go back. And of course, you know what happened to the Egyptians when that happened. Okay, so any final comments? Okay.
It seems to make sense to me that the sea rejoiced, because scientifically, everything's made up of atoms, correct?
Yeah.
And as the atoms get more congested, the less they move. So that doesn't mean that it doesn't move, it does. But it's slower, correct?
Yes. Good point. Excellent. Well, let's daven. What do you say? Last night we had people from all over the country. People in Central America watching. And we had numerous, I'm looking at, sometimes I look at, I do my meditations in the morning, and I'm not so sure how many people are on. There may just be a handful. And then I look at the end of the day and I see 60 people have, because it gets recorded, had watched. And then I find out on YouTube and on our streaming service that another 100 have watched. So we reach an awful lot of people with our broadcast. But I get the pleasure of seeing you, on Zoom. But there are a lot more other people who are enjoying our conversation as well. Good. Okay. So I'm going to put on my tallis. Got my short tallis. There's the, we're coming up to tax season. There's the short 1040 and the long 1040. I'm afraid I sold 2 houses and bought a house this last year, so I guess I'll be using the long 1040. But today I'm going to wear my short talis. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu v'mitzvotav v'hitatef b'tzit. So we'll start with Hine Matov. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov shevet achim gam yachad. Page 188. Hithu li sharet tzedek avovam odeya. Hithu li sharet tzedek avovam odeya. Okay, that is a very old German Reform hymn. That's why you don't know it.
It's actually in the Hallel.
Huh?
In the Hallel.
Is it part of the Hallel too? Yeah. Okay, second to the bottom. This we get back to, the sea rejoiced, everything rejoices. Kol hanishama tehaleya. 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 And now we go to the top of page 79. Magadlu Mahasechaya Meodam Ku Machshavotecha. La 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 Magadlu Mahasechaya. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Meodam Ku Machshavotecha. Okay. And now we go to page 192. Matovu. Matovu.
Matovu.
Ohalecha Yaakov. Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu. Ohalecha Yaakov. Mishkenotecha Yisrael. So we come to this, to page 191, and we thank God for our bodies that are working, the miraculous workings of our physical existence. If Rollo May is right, and I spoke of him earlier, and that when we are in full contact with our spiritual power, whatever that might be, and everyone has got some special gift, and we are allowing God to speak through us with that power, whatever it is, that physically we will feel better. So, Barbara, will you please read, oh, you're muted. Would you please read page 194?
We don't have our books, our tallied anything. We don't know which box that's in today. And so today we will listen and do by heart, but we
Okay, well, Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it says that your prayer should not be kavua. It should not be fixed, that sometime you should add your own prayer. What would you like to say? How would you bless
Okay.
God for your physical existence this morning?
Well, this morning around before 8 o'clock, we took our first walk around here on this little walking path in Hillcrest, and I said, Modeh Ani.
Oh, beautiful.
Together, and we felt so blessed for this day to wake up and have our new place and to feel we were well and our bodies were good and we were outside in nature, and it was a good feeling. So I hope everybody feels that way sometimes, every
Beautiful, beautiful. That's all you got to say. If you don't remember the traditional prayer, make one up, right? That's what you do. Okay. Randy, would you kindly read for us the bottom of page 196?
Okay, since I do have my book.
Well, you just haven't moved. Everything is unpacked for you guys.
I have no excuses for not, correct. All right, bottom of 196. May God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God and God of our ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind.
Excellent. Good. The Nisim B'chol Yom, page 198. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan l'sechvivina l'chachin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam pokeach ivri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam zokef kefukim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam roka haaretz alamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hamechi mitzadei gafer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam malbish marumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hanoten la'ayef Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hama'avir sheina me'inai utuma me'afafai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani ben chori. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam ozer Yisrael bikura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam oter Yisrael bativara. Well, this is where the study part usually comes in. We've already studied. And we did make the blessing for the study of our study and I loved your comments today. Thought we had a nice study session. But so the proper Kaddish that you close your study session out with is the Kaddish Rabbanan, the Kaddish for the teachers. And so we turn to page 208. Again, we're doing a little bit out of order, but that's okay. Ikadav Yikadash Rafa Be'amad Berachirote Bi'amlechote B'chaychol B'yomechon B'chayegefot Beit Yisrael Hagalav Isman Karib Ramen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Leolam Alamelamaya. Yitbarach Vishtabach Yitpa'ar Viturmam Inase. Yitadar Vitale Vitalash made Leala Min Kover Chata Vishirata. Tushbachata Venechamata. Da'miran Bialma Vimramen. Al Yisrael Ve'al Rabbanon Ve'al Tamidecho. Ve'al Kol Tamidecho Ve'al Kol Malda Askin Barayaka. Diva Adra Hadein V'di B'chol Adar Va'adar Yehilachon Elachon Shlama Rabachina V'chista V'rachamim V'chayin Arichi Nerichi Ufarkana Ochon Divi Shamaya V'aravim Ramen Yehi Shlama Rabamim Shamaya V'chayim Tovim Aleinu V'yalko Yisrael Ramen Hosei Shalom Bimromav Ubarachamav Yasei Shalom Aleinu V'yalko Yisrael V'yalko Yisrael Yimeru. Amen. The first paragraph, and it's asking for blessing on us. That's okay. It says, God of heaven and earth, grant abundant peace to our people Israel and their rabbis. Thank you. And to our teachers and their disciples. That's you. Those who engage in the study of Torah here and everywhere. Very good. The Pesukei de Zimmerah, page 212. Baruch Shamar V'Haya Ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Hu Baruch Shamar V'Haya Ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Hu Baruch Osei V'Reishit Baruch Omer Ve'osei Baruch Gozer Umekayem Baruch Merachem Al Haaretz Baruch Sha'amar Ve'Haya Ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Hu Baruch Ata Adonai Melech Mecholal Batishbachu. The Ashrei. Shall we try and get through all the 21 letters mentioned here? I say 21 instead of 22 because the noon is there. Shall we try it?
Why
You're
not?
up for it? Why not?
Sure.
Okay. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Od Yahalu Chatzela, Ashrei Am Shatachalu, Ashrei Am Sh'Adonai Elohav, Tihilala David, Arurimcha Elchai HaMelech, Avrecha Shimcha Leolam Va'ed, V'chol Yom Avreka, Yahalal Shimcha Leolam Va'ed, Gadol Adonai Mechol Me'u, Uglato Ein Cheket, Dor ledor Shabach Maasecha, Gevratecha Yagidu, Hadar Kavod Hodecha, V'divrei Neflotecha Asicha, Ve'ezuz Naratecha Yohomeru, Uglatcha Asa Prene, Zecher Tuvcha Yahapiu, V'tzitchatcha Yeranenu, Chanun Barachum Adonai, Erech Apayim Ugadal Chased, Tov Adonai lekol, Rachamav al kol ma'asav, Yeducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, Uv'chassidecha yavaruchucha, Kavod malchutcha yohomeru, Ugevratecha yedaberu, Lahodi livnei ha'adam gevaratav, Ukvod hadar malchuto, Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור, סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים, עיני כל עליך יסברו, ואתה נותן את החלם בעיתו, פותח את ידיך, ומשביח לכל חי רצון, צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו, קרוב אדוני לכל כהוריו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת, רצון יערב יעשה, ואת ישבתם ישמע ויושיעם, שומר אדוני כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד, בקהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברכו בשר שמתו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם, hallelujah. Oh, I need a little drink of water after that.
Me too.
Ah, boy. Page 218. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah el bekocho. Hallelujah bekiria uzo. Hallelujah bigurata. Hallelujah kero kudlo. Hallelujah. 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 Take a shofar. Hallelujah. Never beltinor. Hallelujah. Tofu maful. Hallelujah. Biminim beugam. Hallelujah. 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 Tzitzilei Shama. Hallelujah. Tzitzilei Trua. Kol hanshama tel hallelujah. Kol hanshama tel hallelujah. 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 Page 220, second paragraph. Shochinat Maharon, Bekadosh Shamo, Bekatuv Raninu Tzadikim Ba'adonai, LeYesharim Navat Tehila, Befi Yesharim Titalav, Udivrei Tzadikim Titbarav, Uvelashon Chasidim Titromam, Bekerev Kedushim Tihikadash, Umakalot, Revivot, 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 Amcha, Beit Yisrael, Umakalot, Revivot, 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 Amcha, Beit Yisrael, Berina Yitpare, Shimcha Malkeinu, Dor vador, berina yitpare, shimcha malkeinu, dor vador, ishtabach shimcha le'ah malkeinu, ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol ha'kadosh b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, shir shivcha halel v'simra, Oza Memshala Netzach Gedola Gebra Tehila Tiferet Kedusha Malchot Brachot Udot Me'atav Yad Olam Baruch Ata Adonai El Melech Tishbaot El HaHodaot Adonai Neflaot Abocher B'Shirei Simra Melech Elchei HaOlamim Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemeshmo Ma'adevrach Yerotei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chayedechol Beit Yisrael Bagola Uvizman karivim aruk Amen Yesh Me'rabah Torah לעולם עולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי דקודשא מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן ויעלמה, וימרו. Amen. And we rise for the Baruch Hu. Yai, lai, 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 lai,
Mevora.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam ha'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam ha'ed. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Marlene, would you read for us page 228?
So tired, Stanley, so tired.
Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy, you illumine the world and those you live upon it. In your goodness, you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom, you formed them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai, our God, for the excellent work of your hands and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion that we may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzir Ha'orot.
Yashikar, page 230. Ve'ha'arernenu b'toratecha v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha ve'yachet levavenu le'ahava u'lera et shemecha ve'lo nevosh ve'lo nikalem Elonika shel le'olam ha'ed ki v'shem kodeshecha hagadol v'hanora atachnu nagila v'nismecha nagila v'nismecha v'shuatecha Baruch atah Adonai, Abocher b'amo Yisrael, v'yahava Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Malchuto, Le'olam ha'ed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה Asher Anochi Mitzavacha Hayom Alevavecha Vishinantam Levanecha Vadibarcha Bam Vashivtecha Babetecha Uvalechtecha Baderech Ushochtecha Ukomecha Shartam Lo Oyedecha Vehayula Totamot Ein Enecha Uchtata Amizuzot Betecha Uvishareh. We go to page 236 and we read in the middle the paragraph in English. Adonai said to Moses as follows, speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner, that they shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you shall not follow your heart and the eyes of your lustful urge. Leman tiskoru, vasitem et kol mitzvotai, item kedushim lelehechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני Adonai Elohechem. Amen. Mi chamocha 240. Mi chamocha mi chamocha nehidar Yisrael, Kuma Yisrael, Yisrael, Ufte Pirumecha, Yehuda Yisrael, Go Aleinu, Adonai Tzvot Yedosh Yisrael, Baruch Ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Page 244, we rise for the tefillah.
We're in this, oh my God, she's beautiful. Wearing a grandma Lee made. I don't even know where East is.
Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Ela Gadula Korban Ora, Maybe you will only pay the name. Shiva Ruach Vidhan God Hashem no men, no fleet, no faith, holy Umati Rasuli Umekaye Emunato Vishane Umito Melet Meni Umekaye Umati Yeshua Benanaka Latakayo Meiti Baruch
Adonai,
Echaye Hamid.
Eighteen.
Kadeshim Kabolam, Kashim Shamafishim Oto Bishmei Mavo. Akatu Yad Yecham Karaze Elze V'Yamar. Kadosh,
Kadosh, Kadosh.
Melokula Aretz.
Oretz Kevel.
Adir, Adireno Adonai, Adonai Ma, Adir Shimta B'Kola Aretz. Baruch Kevod Adonai, Mim Homo. Echad hu Eloheinu hu Avinu hu Malkeinu hu Mosheinu hu Mosheinu Barakama le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Yimloch Adonai
Adonai Le'olam.
Elohai
Yetzion.
Dor Vador.
Hallelujah.
Ledor Vador.
Ador.
Dor Vador. God, Ola Netzach Netzach, Ola Netzach
Kedusha.
Elohim, Hino Yam let your adore, let your adore, let your adore, God lecha, Ula netzach netzachim, Ula netzachim,
Kedusha.
Nasi, Baruch Ata Adonai, El HaKadosh. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat. Aha, Mekadeshei, Mekadeshei Shavi Shabbat. Kulam Yisbeu V'yitangu B'tuvecha Shabbat. Ayismir Maltecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat. Oneg Shabbat Ashvi Ratzita Bo Kidashto Shabbat Emdad Yaminoto Karata Shabbat Ayismir Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Oneg Shabbat Zechel Lamase Vareshi Shabbat Zechel Lamase Vareshi Shabbat Ayismechu Amalchutecha Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat. We read together on 254. Find favor, Adonai, our God, with your people,
Israel,
and accept their
Their
prayers.
prayers and love. May the
May
worship
the
of
worship of your people Israel always be acceptable.
acceptable.
God who is near to all who call,
Lovingly
lovingly to your servants,
pour out your
pour out
spirit
your
upon us.
spirit upon us. Let our eyes behold your loving return to Zion. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose presence returns to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai, Amachazir Shechinato Letzion. Page 256, once more together, middle of the page. We acknowledge with
We
thanks
thank that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our
God of our
ancestors,
ancestors forever.
forever,
You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation.
generation.
Let us thank you for your praise, for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time,
day,
evening, morning,
Morning and night.
O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness. You are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai.
Adonai.
Tov shimcha lecha ne'eh. Sim, sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. En bechesed v'rachamim aleinu. Yalko Yisrael amecha. Barchenu yotzreinu kulanu ke'echad. Amen. Sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Baruch atah Adonai hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Well, a few days ago, we observed the Jewish New Year for the trees, Tu B'Shvat. And, there's a lot of wisdom to be learned from the trees. I spoke about the wisdom, the midah, that is the spiritual quality of patience that you learn from trees. Trees are not in a rush to get anywhere, are they? They stay put. They're rooted in the earth. And the trees don't run away from any of the seasons. In the cold of the winter, up north where the snow lays heavily on their branches, the trees endure the cold. The sap goes down into the roots. And then in spring, as it warms up, the snow melts, the sap, without any effort, it just rises. And the tree, if it is a tree that bears some sort of fruit, will blossom. I used to love the tulip trees up in Pennsylvania. Those of you who are from New York or Pennsylvania, or the tulip trees, they grow these beautiful flowers, and the trees just seem to rejoice with spring. And then with the heat of summer, they will bear the hot sun, and they will slowly ripen. They don't force anything, but with patience, the tree slowly ripens with its fruit in the fall. And it just freely gives its fruit. And then, as with the chill of winter, it lets go of its leaves, and the sap goes down again and rests. There is a wisdom I find in trees. It's the wisdom of savlanut, patience. When you're young, you push, you strain, you push to get things done. And there's throughout life, there are times when you have to push. But then there are times, if you're wise, and it probably comes with the wisdom that you get through living your life there are times when you realize you just have to let things ripen on their own, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, you know, I gotta push to get this done, you know? And there are times you say, I just gotta let it ripen. This isn't the right time. It'll come. It'll come. I'll know when the time is right. And I think that is wisdom that we learn from the trees. I think it's a wisdom that we learn with the years. And even with the hardships, we learn. We learn to be patient. We learn to be patient in the spring, in the winter, the fall, the summer of our lives. And we learn when to push. We learn when to allow things to ripen. So close your eyes for a moment or two on this week during which we celebrate Tu B'Shvat and meditate on the quality of patience, knowing when to move and when to allow things to come to us, knowing when to be active, knowing when to be still.
How we doing?
Oh, say shalom bimroma. Huya say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imaru, imaru, amen. Yah say shalom. Yah say shalom. Shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Yah say shalom. Yah say shalom. Shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael.
So we're not getting paid again.
Amen. And now we turn to page 586 for the Aleinu.
Just put it on a doodle. Let's close it out. You have these two pieces coming. As soon as they come, we'll give you, we'll subtract X number of dollars. And when it comes in, we'll do it. You gotta get paid. That's for sure. You're still there, right? You there?
And to go.
What is
Ahaya Adonai, Lamelech al kol haaretz, Bayom hahu, Adonai echad, Ushamo echad. The Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yitgadal, Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitchumah. Vita dar, vita lei, vita la, me shabri, leila min kober chata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, ta'amigan b'yamavi. Hey shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yalpo Yisrael. Oseh shalom b'mav, uyaseh shalom. Aleinu v'yalpo Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Very good. And so, let's see here. Let's go to, let's see. Page 626.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
before we close out, if we could say Mr. Barrett for sick people too. I have a friend that's
For who?
For sick people. There's a friend of mine that's very sick.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. What's your friend's name?
I don't know her Hebrew name, but her English name is Ronit. Yeah, my wife is trying to. Ronit Ozeri.
Hey.
Ronit Ozeri.
Can I add one too, please?
Sure.
Adit Framovich.
And my brother, Barry Meyerson.
Yeah. Lottie Green.
Yes. Good.
My sister had an accident yesterday.
Oh,
she's not sick. She texted me, but she's pretty banged up. So let's say one for my sister, Judy.
Okay.
Your sister, Judy. We send this out to Judy.
A lot of you know Judy. So.
Yes.
May the source of strength who bless us before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishemera imotenu makor abracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Good. Ein Kalohei, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kimalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, Eloheinu, Adoneinu, Ein Eloheinu, Kamoshienu. No de l'Eloheinu, no de l'Adoneinu, no de l'Malkeinu, no de l'Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Oh boy. Well, it's a beautiful day here in paradise.
Beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Beautiful day in the
neighborhood.
Won't you be my neighbor?
I loved Fred Rock.
Barbara, you have to go out in the hallway and start singing that. You'll meet your neighbors.
I know we have not met one single person yet, but it's only two.
I want to mention something. My friend who lives downstairs with you, know, she hasn't been there in a while. And you are giving her the encouragement because she to return, to get well, and to come here from Texas, to come back to Florida.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. I want you to know.
You don't know who you're going to inspire.
Yeah, but good luck.
Raise up your glasses.
I'll get her glass.
Nothing interesting today.
I'm gonna go buy Dailies to celebrate.
Bailey's will work. Marlene thinks she's going to be like that guy who turned water into wine. Every week she's hoping it'll turn into a nice Cabernet Sauvignon.
I don't drink wine. I don't like wine. I like whiskey. I like vodka, and I like Bailey's.
Do you like beer?
Yeah, I like beer.
There is a place up on Federal Highway. You know where that store where they sell shells just before you cut off to the airport?
Oh, yeah.
Well, in that shopping center in the back, there's a brewery called Three Sons, and they have this big outdoor place. I took, and they have you're outside, lots of social distancing. They have these big tanks, and they make the most exquisite. I'm not a beer drinker, but I tell you, it's exquisite and the best pizza you've ever had. They got a chef someplace to make pizza for them. And so, if you are venturing out to eat outside, and it's a lovely place, and you're eating outside, lots of, and you want they make an amber beer there that is fabulous, and their pizza, they say it's to die for. It is great. Okay, so if you like beer, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari. Amen.
I'm so tired. I couldn't lift that bottle of Bailey's. I really am. I'm so worn out from hearing other people's problems that they should be at the therapist, and I'll probably need one. Everybody is suffering terribly, mentally, physically.
Yeah.
I'm okay, but
it's
getting to me.
You know what, Marlene, in my line of work, I hear a lot. I deal with some tough things. This month, I think I've done 7 funerals. I mean, it's a lot for 1 month. And, people are hurting. There's sometimes I just have to say, okay, you're being a rabbi. In a sense, you're being that person's rabbi. I think we all are somebody's rabbi at times. And Marlene, sometimes you just got to watch sitcom. You got to have a laugh. You need a break. You need to sometimes brush it off. The other. You're really a good person to listen, but sometimes you just rabbis get burnout, and I think caregivers, just regular folks, get burnout. Sometimes you just.
Yep.
And Betty, I know you looked after your mom for all those years. You must have felt it at times. We all get that way, and sometimes I'll be flipped. I'll have I will have done a lot of counseling, and I'll get home. I just want to watch some television. I don't want to watch good for me television. I want to watch something that's going to take my mind off of it.
True.
Well, let me, that's a great segue. Let me just remind everyone here and those on the other media that tonight we have our poker night.
That's right. Oh, gee.
So,
I'm a sponsor. I'm not playing because I don't know a royal flush from a.
Poker night is tonight.
I have no idea how to play. I went online just to say what beats what, and I just think, Marlene, it may just be a way just to say, oh, I'm gonna socially interact with people and have a little.
It's the people that I'm counseling that should be playing. I mean, I'm really, I don't, and none of them are in Florida. They're all over the country, and it's genuine. It isn't just complaints, and it's tough. And the person I turn to for comfort is my sister. We talk an hour every day. She's in South Carolina, and she fell off the treadmill.
Oh, yeah.
And she sent me pictures of her boo-boos. And now I have to comfort her because
You know, sometimes you comfort with humor. I was good friends with the Federation representative, the Philadelphia Federation person in Bucks County. Lisa, she was a buddy of mine. We used to get together and do programs, and I remember I got to be good enough friends with her that I could tell her all the cruddy things were happening. I don't know. One time we're having lunch and we were planning a program for the community, but I said, Lisa, the congregation is driving me crazy. The board, and I went on, and my kids are blah, 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 and I blah, blah, and I went on. And you know what she did? It was the funniest thing. She looked at me like this and she said, you know, it really does suck to be you. And I burst out laughing. I realized that I was in a big pity. You know, it really does suck. That was the funniest thing. And you know, that's what I needed to hear. Get over it.
No, I was thinking of Betty now. That with Betty, this was our bat mitzvah portion about 5 years ago. And I was thinking it's nice that we're both here.
Right.
today's
Yes,
crossing the-
yes.
last week I told Cantor, you know, he was singing, we were talking about singing, going across the ocean. So I said, how about Anchors Away? Remember last week, whoever was there, Rabbi, we missed you last week. But
Oh, yeah.
But we've heard a lot about it. Cantor did it during class, and we've been hearing a lot about that voyage.
Sometimes you gotta just laugh. Sometimes the situation is so ridiculous. Sometimes we're
Yes.
ridiculous. You know, and you go, what are you gonna do?
You gotta laugh, right?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Oh, you got a pita. Very good. I
Rita,
have
I'm
pita at
ready.
home,
Good
too.
luck tonight on your game. I hope you win.
If I last 3 minutes, it'll be a long time.
I know how to-
I'm a sponsor, but I can't gamble.
Are you playing Ursula? Betty, are you?
No.
I'm sorry. Gambling is not my thing. I'm sorry.
I love to gamble, but I don't. I don't, because I really do love to gamble, and and I know how to play poker, but I could never last against real poker players. But it's just.
Yeah,
it's fun.
within reason, as long as you don't
I played when I
bring
would go
your D to your house with you.
Oh no, I'm a cheap gambler.
Okay, everybody,
Okay.
love you.
All right.
Shabbat
Thank
shalom.
you.
Very much.